The first thing he ever said to me about my job was that it was temporary. We were sitting in his car outside the diner where I worked, and he said it like it was a fact, like the weather. You won't be doing this forever. I remember thinking it was sweet. I thought he meant that he believed in me, that he saw something more for my future. I was 26. I still thought people meant the kindest version of what they said. His name was Trevor. Trevor Ashby. I met him when he came in for a late breakfast on a Tuesday, ordered black coffee and a short stack, left a decent tip and his number on the receipt. He was in his first year at Georgetown Law. He had that look about him, the kind of careful confidence that comes from knowing exactly where you're headed. I was waitressing at a place called Patsy's on Wisconsin Avenue, splitting my shifts between that and a second job doing data entry for a property management company downtown. I was paying off a car loan, splitting rent with a roommate, and sending a little back home to my mom every month. My life was not glamorous, but it was mine, and I was proud of it. Trevor and I dated for 7 months before we moved in together. We got married 2 years after that in a small ceremony at a state park outside the city. My sister did my hair. My mom cried through the whole thing. Trevor's parents flew in from Connecticut and shook my hand very firmly and said very little. His father was a retired federal judge. His mother sat on the board of 2 nonprofits I had never heard of. They were pleasant the way marble is pleasant, smooth and cold and impressive and completely indifferent to you. I told myself it didn't matter, that Trevor was different. And for a while, he was. The first 2 years of law school were fine. Hard, but fine. Trevor studied constantly. I picked up extra shifts. We ate a lot of pasta and watched a lot of bad television and fell asleep on the couch with his casebooks open on the coffee table. I helped pay his tuition when his scholarship didn't cover the full semester. I covered utilities when his student loan disbursement came in late. I didn't keep a running total in my head. That's not why I did it. I did it because we were a team, and that's what you do when you're on a team. You show up. The shift happened so slowly that I almost didn't notice it. The summer before his 3rd year, he started spending more time with the study group. 4 or 5 students, most of them from well-off families. 2 of them with last names I recognized from the kind of buildings that have other people's names on them. He started talking differently. Not his vocabulary. His vocabulary had always been good, but the rhythm of it. The references. The names he dropped in a conversation like they were just words and not signals. He came home one night and mentioned that one of his study group friends had a family place on the Eastern Shore and had invited everyone out for a long weekend. Everyone? I said. He looked at his phone. It's a small group thing. I wasn't invited. I didn't make it a fight. I had learned by then that certain things with Trevor were easier to let pass. I told myself he needed this. That networking was part of it, that I didn't fit in with that crowd anyway, that it would be awkward, that it didn't mean anything. I told myself a lot of things that summer. His final semester, something changed in how he looked at me when I came home from work. It was subtle. It was the kind of thing you can't prove. But I felt it, the way his eyes would go to my uniform, the non-iron polyester shirt with the small logo on the chest, the way he would look back at his laptop just a beat too quickly. I started changing clothes in the car before I came upstairs. I don't know when I started doing that. I just know that I did. He got a clerkship offer in April. A federal judge, 7th Circuit, based in Chicago. Prestigious, competitive, exactly what he had been working toward. I made dinner to celebrate. I bought a bottle of wine that was too expensive for our budget, and I set the table properly, and I was genuinely, completely happy for him. That night, he told me his judge had a very particular image she maintained for her clerks. That the legal community in Chicago was small and close-knit, that appearances mattered. I said I understood. He said he wasn't sure I did. I put down my fork. I looked at him across the table, the good table we had found at a thrift store and refinished together one Saturday afternoon, and I said, "What does that mean?" He didn't look at me. He moved his food around his plate, and then he said, "It means that when people ask about my wife, I don't know what to tell them. I want to be careful here because I want you to understand what happened in that moment, not the anger which came later, not the grief which came much later. What happened first was something quieter, something like the floor going soft, like a word you've always known the spelling of suddenly looking wrong." I said, "Tell them the truth." He said, "You're a waitress, Joanna." He said my name like it was part of the problem. I told him that I had been a waitress for 6 years, that I had worked 2 jobs for most of our marriage, that I had covered rent for 3 months when his financial aid was delayed, that I had paid the electric bill and the car insurance, and once, when his mother needed help with a flight home after a medical scare, I had put it on my credit card without being asked. I said all of this. Calmly, I think. My voice was steady. I remember being surprised by that. He said, I know you have. But Joanna, these people, it's a different world. You don't understand how it works. I asked him what he was suggesting. He was quiet for a long time. Long enough that I started to hope he was going to walk it back, that he was going to say something that made sense. Something that closed the distance that had opened up between us across that thrift store table. Instead, he said, I think it would be easier if you stayed in D.C. while I'm in Chicago, just for the year. I asked him what he would tell people. He picked up his fork. He still wasn't looking at me. And he said, I'll figure something out. I found out what he figured out 3 months later. I had moved out. Not dramatically. There was no screaming, no throwing of things, no final confrontation in the rain. We had agreed to a separation with a vagueness that I now understand was intentional on his part. I went back to renting a room for my old college roommate in Silver Spring. I took my things, my books, my grandmother's ring that I kept in a box in the closet because I didn't wear jewelry to work. I left behind the kitchen table we had refinished. I don't know why. I think I just didn't want to look at it. I found out through his cousin, Marcy. She had always liked me, Marcy. She texted me one Sunday afternoon, just a question mark followed by, Did you know he's been telling people you passed away? I read it 4 times. I called her. She told me she had run into one of Trevor's law school friends at a birthday party in Bethesda. The friend had offered condolences for my passing. He said Trevor didn't like to talk about it, but that his wife had died suddenly about a year ago, that it had been devastating, that he had thrown himself into his career to cope. I sat on my roommate's couch with my phone in my hand, and I thought, very clearly and very slowly, he told them I was dead. He had not said I stayed in D.C. He had not said why separated. He had said I was dead, gone, buried. A tragedy he had survived. Marcy said the legal community there had rallied around him. His judge had been particularly supportive. There had apparently been a very well-regarded woman from an old Chicago family. Her father was a named partner at one of the most respected firms in the city, who had been introduced to Trevor through the judge's social circle. Her name was Cecily. They had been seeing each other for 6 months. I did not cry. I don't know why. I think I had already cried most of what I had to cry in the months of the separation, in the quieter grief of understanding that the person I thought I married had been, in some important way, someone I made up. What I felt instead was something cleaner, something that needed time to develop like a photograph. Our divorce was finalized the following spring. I had a lawyer, a woman named Adrian, who charged a flat fee for uncontested cases and who I will be grateful for the rest of my life. Trevor did not contest anything. He wanted it quiet. He wanted it fast. I let him have those things because I was tired and because I had already started to understand that what I wanted was not custody of objects or money, though I did negotiate because Adrian told me to, and she was right. What I wanted was something else, something I wasn't ready to name yet. I found out about the engagement from the same place everyone finds out about everything now. Someone tagged a photo. A rooftop somewhere, the skyline behind them, and Trevor in a blue jacket with his arm around a tall woman in a cream-colored dress. The caption was from someone else at the party, so happy for these two. There were 47 comments. Several of them mentioned that it was wonderful to see Trevor happy again after everything he had been through. Everything he had been through. I think he had been through. I put my phone face down on the desk. I work at a hospital now, for the record. I went back to school for medical coding and billing while I was in Silver Spring. I work in the revenue cycle department at a regional medical center outside D.C. I wear scrubs. I like the work. I'm good at it. I tell you this not because it matters what I do for a living, but because I want you to understand that I was not standing still while Trevor built his new life on top of my grave. I got the wedding invitation by accident, or not by accident, exactly. Marcy sent it to me. She'd been invited. Trevor's family connections, his cousin by blood, and she had photographed the card and sent it to me with no message, just the image. The venue was a private club in Lincoln Park. The date was a Saturday in October. The dress code listed was black tie. I looked at that invitation for a long time. I did not decide anything right away. I lived with it for 2 weeks. I thought about all the things people said when they heard stories like mine, about how I should show up, about how I should stand up at the ceremony and let them all see, about public scenes and dramatic reveals and the particular satisfaction of watching a liar's face in the moment he is caught. I thought about all of that, and then I thought about what I actually wanted, not what was satisfying in theory, what I wanted in the room, in my body, on a Tuesday night when the whole thing was over. I did not want to be part of his wedding, even to ruin it. I did not want to stand in that room and have everyone look at me. I was not a ghost coming back to haunt him. I was a living person who had been told she was dead, and I had decided, very quietly, very carefully, that the right person to tell the truth was not me. 3 weeks before the ceremony, I sent a letter. Not to Trevor. To Cecily's father. It was 2 pages. I had written it 11 times before I was satisfied. It was not dramatic. It was not angry. It contained, in plain language, the following: my full legal name, my marriage date, my divorce date, the case number filed in D.C. Superior Court, and a brief summary of the financial contributions I had made during our marriage, including the months I had covered his living expenses while he was in school. I attached copies of bank statements. I had kept everything, which I also want you to note, because you should always keep everything, and a copy of our divorce decree. I said at the end of the letter, I am not writing to ask for anything. I am writing because I believe you have a right to know that the man marrying your daughter told his colleagues, his judge, and your family that his first wife died. She did not. She is writing this letter. I sent it certified mail, and then I waited. I am going to tell you what happened, but first I want to tell you what it felt like to wait, because I think that part matters. I kept going to work. I ate lunch at my desk most days. I went to my sister's house on the weekend and helped her repaint her kitchen. I was not calm exactly, but I was clear. I had done what I could do. The rest was not mine to control. The wedding was on a Saturday. My phone started ringing at 11 in the morning. The first call was from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. The second call, 20 minutes later, was from Trevor's mother. I did not pick up. She called again. Then a number I didn't know. Then Trevor's mother again. Then a number I didn't know. Then Trevor's mother again. Then a number with a Chicago area code. Then 2 calls close together, both unknown. Then at 1047 in the afternoon, I know because I screenshot it, I don't know why, instinct maybe, a call from Trevor himself. I did not pick up for any of them. What I know about what happened in that club in Lincoln Park, I know from Marcy, who was there, who called me that evening from the parking lot in a voice that was trying very hard not to laugh. The letter had reached Cecily's father. He had sat on it for almost 2 weeks. Marcy did not know exactly when he decided to act on it, but she knew that he had made calls. He had reached out to a contact at the D.C. courts. He had verified the case number. He had confirmed that Trevor Ashby had in fact been married to a woman named Joanna, and that they had divorced 14 months before Trevor had begun telling people she was dead, and that the story of her death predated even the divorce. Cecily's father had said nothing to Trevor. He had waited until the rehearsal dinner. He had stood up at the end of the evening. Marcy said this quietly, like she was still processing it, and he had said that he needed to address something before the next day's celebration. He said it without drama. He was apparently a man who had spent 30 years in courtrooms and had learned that the quietest delivery is the most devastating. He said he had recently come to understand that there were some facts about the groom's past that the family deserved to know. He said he had done his due diligence as he always did. He said he was sorry to do this here and now, but that there was no better time. He read the relevant parts of the letter. Marcy said you could hear the ice settling in the glasses. The wedding did not happen the next day. Cecily's father announced publicly in a statement to the firm's internal network, because he was that kind of man, thorough and deliberate, that his family had withdrawn from the planned union after discovering a pattern of material deception on the part of the prospective groom. He did not specify. He did not have to. In a professional community that small, the specifics travel on their own. Trevor's judge was informed. I do not know the details of what was said. What I know is that he did not return to her chambers after October. What I know is that a background check of the kind that prestigious firms conduct, the kind that Cecily's father almost certainly commissioned, turns up a marriage and a divorce in the public record of a federal district court, and that the gap between that divorce and the story Trevor had been telling was not explainable. He called me 4 more times over the following week. I did not answer any of them. He sent one text. It said, "You didn't have to do this." I looked at that message for a long time. I thought about all the ways I could respond. I thought about the table we were finished. I thought about the bottle of wine I bought when he got his clerkship. I thought about my mother's face at our wedding and the way Trevor's father had shaken my hand very firmly and said very little. I thought about a Tuesday morning at Patsy's on Wisconsin Avenue and a man who left his number on a receipt and who told me, 7 years later, that I was dead. I typed back one sentence. I left it in my drafts for 3 days. Then I deleted it without sending. Because there was nothing I needed him to understand anymore. The people who mattered already knew the truth. The people who didn't know didn't matter. I kept the bank statements in a folder on my desktop for a while. Then I moved them to a flash drive and put the flash drive in a drawer. Maybe someday I'll throw it away. Maybe not. What I think about now, more than anything else, is something Adrian said to me the day we finalized the paperwork. We were standing in the parking garage of her building, and I was putting on my sunglasses, and she said, "People like that always think the story is over when they close the door. They forget that the other person is still in it." I thought about that a lot in the months that followed. I'm still thinking about it. I am still in it. My life, I mean. My actual life. I got a certification in healthcare compliance last spring. I have a good apartment now, a 1-bedroom with south-facing windows and a small balcony where I keep a container garden. I talk to my sister twice a week. My mother came to visit in August, and we went to the farmer's market and she bought too much corn, and I didn't say anything because she looked happy. I am not the same person I was when I was 26 and thought that people meant the kindest version of what they said. But I am not broken either. I want to be clear about that. I am not telling this story because I am broken. I am telling it because I spent a long time being very quiet about something that happened to me, and I got tired of being quiet, and also because I know that I am not the only one. If you worked a second job so someone could finish a degree, if you covered the rent when the money was late, if you stood in the parking garage after signing divorce papers and didn't know quite what you were supposed to feel, if you found out, through someone else, through a text with a question mark at the beginning, that the person you gave everything to had decided it was easier to tell people you were dead. This is for you. The ghost is not gone. The ghost went to work and kept her records and got a certification and grew tomatoes on her balcony. The ghost is right here. I've thought a lot about what it means to be erased by someone who needed you first. Trevor didn't lie about me because he was careless. He lied because he had calculated, very precisely, that I was worth more to him as a story than as a person. A dead wife is sympathetic. A dead wife doesn't show up. A dead wife doesn't remember who paid the electric bill in February or who put his mother's flight on a credit card without being asked. He needed me gone, and so he made me gone, and he did it so cleanly that people send him condolences. That's not bad luck. That's a choice. And choices, I'd come to understand, have a weight to them that accumulates over time, whether you're watching or not. I didn't send that letter to punish him. I want to be honest about that because I think the story is more useful if I'm honest. I sent it because Cecily's father deserved accurate information before making a decision that would affect the rest of his daughter's life. That's it. I wasn't trying to destroy anything. I was just finally, after a very long time of being quiet, telling the truth to the right person. What happened after was not my doing. It was the natural result of Trevor's own architecture collapsing under its own weight. He had built something elaborate on a foundation that required my silence. The moment my silence ended, the rest followed on its own. I didn't push anything over. I just stopped holding it up. I think about that distinction a lot. There's a version of the story where I'm the villain, the bitter ex-wife who torpedoed a man's future. I've read comments like that, but what I know from the inside is that Trevor torpedoed his own future the day he decided that deception was a reasonable career strategy. I was just the part of it he forgot was still alive. Here's what I actually learned, and I mean learned in the way that costs something. Integrity is not a soft quality. People treat it like it's a personality preference, like some people are just naturally more ethical than others the way some people are left-handed. But I don't think that's true. I think integrity is a practice, a daily decision about whether you are willing to carry the true version of your own life or whether you'd rather put something easier in its place. Trevor chose the easier version, and the easier version required that I not exist. The other thing I learned is about intelligence, real intelligence, not the kind that gets you through law school. Real intelligence is knowing what information matters and keeping it. I kept my bank statements. I kept the divorce decree. I kept Marcy's text, not because I was planning anything. I kept them because Adrian told me to, and because somewhere in me I understood that the true record of a life is worth preserving, even when nobody's asking to see it. That turned out to matter. And the last thing, the hardest one, you have to be willing to keep going when the going is very, very quiet. There was no dramatic moment where I knew I would be okay. There was just one Tuesday after another. The certification class I took on evenings, the south-facing windows I found eventually, the container garden that I tend every morning before work. Resilience is not a feeling. It's a practice too. It's showing up to your own life even when someone has told everyone you're dead. Joanna is still here. The records are in a drawer and a flash drive. The tomatoes are doing well this year.